What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ragnarok Gaming. Now, as promised, I am back from vacation, and of course, during this time frame, the embargo has been lifted for a lot of our favorite content creators that was able to attend the media tour for Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I, of course, am not one of the people who went to the media tour, of course. I'm just now starting out, so of course, I was not going to be able to go, of course. But I want to make a quick disclaimer that the content I'm going to be showing is things that I personally have recorded on the current state of the game, pretty much working with Stormblood and things in the background. And this is more of a conversational piece versus, me going over specifics, since a lot of that is going to be for a lot of other YouTubers and content creators and streamers that we all love and follow. They'll be able to talk about that freely and definitely watch their videos. I have watched a lot of videos over my vacation as well. And like I promised, I'm making a video now, more or less causing a discussion. I want to kind of go over some of the things and contention from my last video, which was Machinist hype. It was. I'm very excited for Machinist, and I feel like it's in a very good spot now. From what I've seen in detail from when the embargo got lifted, watched almost every person that did the Machinist videos I watched. And the reason why is because I want the job to be better than what it is currently. But I do also want to see the other jobs. And as well, my last video also, during that discussion, I did say that the two losers out of the job trailer were Warrior and as well Bard. Bard is my main and has always been. I started from level 1, went all the way through every piece of content I can think of. There's only like a handful. I think Coils is a couple, just to name one thing, but everything else I have done. So it was a little heartbreaking when watching the job trailer. But the reason why I have a different opinion now on it all is I feel like Range Physical is going to be one of the best, if not the best, DPSs in the game. More or less, not by damage numbers, but by being well-rounded and identifying each other. So one of the key things to a job is identity. If the job loses its identity, which has happened a couple of times, when it loses its identity, it becomes a little bit lackluster for some players. Now, some players may like the way certain playstyles are. For instance, I played Bard through all of content, and that also includes through Heaven's Ward. And mind you, I came in about after year 1 of Heaven's Ward being out, so I was doing a lot of catch up, and as you all may know, that's a lot of gameplay. But then getting to Heaven's Ward, the difficult part was adjusting from a full range, running around doing my abilities to having to rely on cast times now to keep my damage up. So it's a little, that playstyle didn't fit me very well when it came to Bard. If I wanted that, I would have necessarily went with a caster DPS versus a ranged physical DPS. Hence why in Heaven's Ward, Machinist more or less was the top of the meta versus a Bard, since they did the same exact thing. Once again, identity was lost with Bard in Heaven's Ward. Now in Stormblood, the identity was re-established and was found again, and this is probably the best the Bard has been. Now, of course, in the job trailer, it really didn't show much. Didn't give it a lot of juice there to where we can base off like this is a great change, because as a matter of fact, it's not technically a great change. It's more or less the fact that a lot of the changes that were made to Bard were all behind the scenes. So how Straight Shot got changed, And as well, though, the procs got changed as well. Instead of having them crit, they just need to have a percentage of, like 40% chance, or 35 or 40% chance that it will proc for your soul gauge. And that's great to me, to be honest, because granted, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting a full crit build, more or less, um, with Bard, and that's just because like I need the crit currently in Stormblood. But they're changing that. So a lot of quality of life changes. The songs are changing as well. We're getting a new form of Armies Payon, where if we have 4 stacks of Armies Payon and we transfer to another song, or even just stacks in general when we switch to another song, um, we get Army's Muse, which is like a 15-second duration of faster recast time, or like just speeding up skill speed, which is pretty cool. I think that's a really cool quality of life change, especially since you really don't get much from Army's Pan besides the skill speed, and switching to songs definitely changes that a little bit, because now you still get like 15 extra seconds for it. In general, the procs changed. The crit did change, which I'm not too mad about, to be honest. Like, just playing your song and getting a 5% crit buff for everybody, that's cool. But I understand why they're kind of drifting away from that, because of the other ranged physicals. In essence, they need to have their own individual identity. Machinist is now having a really big identity change, and it's solidifying its identity now. And ShadowBringers, Bard needed to be slightly tweaked to fit its own identity still, but also having enough room to where we're adding the dancer and the dancer's identity. And that's where I feel like they're very well balanced. Because, granted, a quick theory craft, the dancer is most likely going to be in high-end raids all the time. They're going to be a requirement very similar to Stormblood Bard. Stormblood Bard is a requirement for a lot of high-end raiders. They want the extra crit. They want the, extra things that it can provide. In general, Bards are very well wanted in this case. But now we have 3 ranged physicals, and from the looks of it, I mean, Dancer is strong. I mean, granted, as all the videos that are out currently, the potencies and things like that are, of course, subject to change. What they played on was as of April 30th, as they say. So, things are subject to change. Potencies and everything in general is subject to change. But a quick theory craft of, it's going to be strong. Regardless of the fact of what we want or what we're thinking, it's going to be strong. Like, just doing the standard set, which is a 2-step combo. If you do the 2 steps, that's like a 1,000 potency damage. That's 1,000 potency for just 2 steps. And I think like a 1,500 potency for all 4 steps for technical step. But the difference is the buffs that the dancer provides, and the utility that the dancer provides. Because of how, for instance, they made changes to all 3 ranged physicals to give them a raid-wide, damage mitigation. So for Dancer, it's Shield Samba. For Bard, it's now Troubadour, instead of having a specific song up, which is a great quality of life, to make Troubadour just a flat damage mitigation. And then the Machinist still has Tactician, which of course makes a lot of sense in my opinion. But they can't stack, of course. But the fact that Dancer has Shield Samba, has Cure Waltz, or Curing Waltz, and that is a 200 potency heal around the Dancer. However, as well, because of course Dancer has to have, you can choose a dance partner. The dance partner also does the same 200 potency around them. So both of you are grouped up for a room-wide AoE. You do Curing Waltz, and you have your dance partner right there and everyone grouped up. That's a 400 potency heal all around. Now, that by itself is amazing and insane all at once, because that's a lot of healing and shielding, mitigation, buffing. Granted, Dancer is always, from what I've seen from like Final Fantasy XI and everything, it's always been more of a support focus, but the Bard has also been support focused in the past. But bringing it to a new era and a new way of doing those jobs, such as Final Fantasy XIV having Bard be an archer, and also have a great deal of support. You know, it's even now, it's a phenomenal amount of support that it brings and provides. And of course, Machinist has always just been focused solely on damage. You know, that's just been their thing. And there's nothing wrong with the focus of damage. Hell, like even black mages, they're nothing but damage. They want that big Fire 4 crit. And that's understandable. There is nothing wrong with that at all. So when you look at the ranged physicals, they're keeping their identity but also readjusting to adding a third party here. A third member to the ranged physical group, which I will definitely be playing. Like, to be honest, I will be going through ShadowBringers as a ranged physical. Now, I may start off with my Bard first, get adjusted, do all content that I can, get the highest level gear, because I've always learned that most jobs share gear. So when you have one at the max level and have the max level gear, and you get the other ones up to snuff, even just getting them up to level 80, you now have them fully geared in either raid gear or high-end gear, however you see fit, which I find to be great. The only exception to that rule, in my opinion, is going to be melees. Melees have always been weird, which is why I've never really focused on melees. I will go over them, of course, and go over some of the differences that I've seen in the YouTube videos, comments, as well as like how streamers, you know, they talk about it as well, especially Final Fantasy XIV streamers. They talk about their experiences, especially if they were part of the media tour. There's nothing wrong with that. I greatly enjoy, you know, watching all that content, you know, and I do definitely hope that, you know, with me starting to pursue this a little bit more often, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the conversations, because I will be doing more content, not just conversations, but hopefully guides when ShadowBringers comes out of certain jobs that I'll be, you know, venturing into, possible guides for dungeons and raids and things of that nature that are really well done. Like the raids themselves are really well done. I'm very much hoping the trials are really good. I'm hoping for that as well. So in that regard, I definitely do hope to get to that point where when the next expansion comes out, because let's be honest, there will be another expansion after ShadowBringers. Once it does come out, I would want to be at a point where, you know, I have you guys as my main support as well, but bringing me to be at a media tour. That's my goal. You know, to be able to be there and be a part of that would be phenomenal. And I, you know, just watching all this content, it has really pushed me to want to pursue this more. And I definitely want to be a Final Fantasy XIV content creator with streaming and YouTube. So I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. Now back to the topic at hand. With adding a third member to Range Physical, you also have to keep the identity of the other two to make sure they're still in line and are still capable. because, like I said, a quick theory craft, like I was saying, I feel like Dancer is just going to be in high end raids. I really do. And the highest level, Dancer is going to be that main physical, range physical. And bards and machinists are going to be left to the wayside a little bit, unless they want all three or just two of them to be range physicals, because in essence, bard and machinist are more focused now on damage dealing, getting your procs as bard, and as well with machinist, making sure you build up your battery gauge and your heat gauge. All of that would definitely warrant some more damage output. So, they're getting more of a gear focus to being damage. So it's very exciting, to see that Dancer is going to be that more, even though high damage, but also has to focus on supporting. Because you have to get your steps, you have to make sure either you switch dance partners, or you keep the same dance partner that fits in general. So it's definitely something that would have to be looked at. I do predict that after, I wouldn't say the first patch, to be honest. I feel like that is saying, I feel like that is saying that Dancer is OP, and it is not. But I don't think that it's OP by any means. I do think it's definitely going to be top of the pack, at least in the high end level, the high end level of play, and it definitely has as it was said, it has a low skill floor, but a very high skill ceiling to try and weave in your steps. That's really going to be the biggest thing when I was watching it, is not only just making sure you're paying attention to procs, when to do it, and have a massive damage phase to coordinate with, trick attack, which is still a thing. But in general, being able to weave the dances in, making sure either you have one dance partner or you're constantly switching dance partners. In general, you have to be mindful. There's a lot to keep in mind. A lot more than even even Stormblood Machinist, where even the Stormblood Machinist, you have it to where you have to make sure all your cooldowns are lined up, make sure your gauge is just right before you go into your damage phase. And, that's a lot to focus on. It's going to be easily comparable to Astrologian. Astrologian is a busy job. You have to maintain healing, make sure you have your cards set. You kind of are doing 50 million things all in one, which always keeps you busy, which is really nice. I think that's a really cool addition to that. Even though a lot of people complain that, they make Bard and Machinist too simple. But that's the thing, though. The simplicity of taking away certain aspects of said jobs means that you have a lot more to worry about. Uptime, making sure your DPS is in the proper rotation. In other words, though something is simple, it does not mean that it is easy by any means. And usually what I mean when it comes to it not being that easy is, even though something is simple, you still have to maximize the rotation. So even though with Bard, your procs are definitely significantly different, making sure you're maintaining the procs, as well as, during your heavy burst phase, make sure you are going to be using Barrage, Refulgent Arrow, making sure that you proc all your songs right, making sure you're keeping your utility high still with Troubadour, In general, making sure you're there for the team, um, regardless of how simple your rotation may be. So, even like I just said, even though it's simple, does not make it easy. Sometimes even simple makes it a million times harder and a lot more difficult. Um, and that's understandable. I mean, that just happens with any job. Any job that gets more simple means that oh, my rotation's easier. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have a lot more to worry about than anything. You have a lot more to kind of focus on, to optimize. There's a lot of things going on that you have to maintain. So, even though Bard and Machinists are definitely going to get a simpler play style, that means they have to work that much harder to compete with Dancer, which, the low skill floor is just because it's fun. It's a fun job that, from what I've seen, is something I would definitely greatly enjoy. But it also has a very, very high skill ceiling. It doesn't matter how entry level it gets, you know, it's something that is tough to fully grasp and utilize all of the Dancer's tools. Machinist is relatively the same. You now have two jobs, even though it's a lot more simple. You have two gauges that you have to maintain, and as well be mindful of, your, your battery gauge. The more battery you have, the more likely you will have a longer time with, a longer time in general with the queen. So, in essence, as you may know, that you get a giant automaton queen, which is really, really awesome and really powerful. But in general, the Machinist has a little bit more to worry about now than even in Stormblood. Even though Stormblood, you have your gauge and your overheat mechanic, blah blah blah. It's a lot more complicated, but you also have a little bit more worry about now with Shadowbringers, because now you have to worry about all of your rotation. Before, yeah, your rotation was very complicated and clunky, but at the end of the day, I still enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, they did make it easier for, I'm not to say easier, but more simple for it to get into. But to maximize all of it, it's still complicated. Still overheating your gun for 7 to 8 seconds. Having access to 2 extra abilities while in that overheat state, while also trying to coordinate that with your wildfire, detonate that on time. Make sure you still are at the same time building up your battery, because if you want to keep a high damage phase, you want to get that battery up before you overheat or whatnot. Now, we can all theory craft, but ultimately we have to wait for Shadowbringers to see how we're going to do the Machinist rotation. But it's still, complicated. It still has a very high skill ceiling. Even in the most simple form of what it is in Shadowbringers, it still has a high skill ceiling. It's one of those types of jobs that I feel, no matter how simple you make it, it's still going to have that high skill ceiling where it's going to be, complex. Now, one of the funniest things that I always personally love and feel like it's great is the way that Yoshi P did say that, the pretty much in a broader text, I guess you can say, it's all dependent on player skill. Player skill will dictate the utility of a job or the effectiveness of a job, which is great. Now, that's not his word for word, of course, but in plain sense, yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying that even though you play a job and you do a rotation, it all depends on the player's skill if they can master the jobs and if they can fully use their whole kit. And something that's very interesting and fascinating. One of the tougher jobs is Ninja now. to be honest. The skill floor got increased again. Well, not really. I wouldn't say again. I would say the skill floor was already kind of high, but now it's even higher. There's a lot more to keep track of, and there's a lot more to do. So every job always has a skill floor and a skill ceiling. Some of them are lower, some of them are significantly higher. Now, when they say Dancer has a low skill floor, I personally find that to be the skill floor of I mean, either way, it's going to be enjoyable. But I think that what they mean by that is that the skill floor is, it's easy to understand when you look and read the tooltips and actually are playing it for a little bit. But just playing it here and there and kind of fooling around with it, it's not enough for the Dancer. You'll have to literally play the Dancer a lot, probably in multiple raid tiers, before you get the full optimized rotation of how you do things. Because the main thing is, our big concern is how it's going to be in fights, to be honest. Because are we, like, if we're going to be in trials, are we going to be able to prep dances beforehand? Now, that I did not catch, to be honest. I'll have to, after the dancer comes out, I'll look into that. But as of right now, for me, I didn't see or hear if you can do dances pre-fight. Now, if that was the case, that's broken. For one, to me, it shouldn't be that way. Mostly because of the amount of utility that the dances bring. Like, not even just shield samba. That's not even what I mean. It's more of the steps. Now, even if you do standard step, that's cool for you and your dance partner. But if you can do technical step before a fight and give everyone a buff, like, that is going to be broken. Now, mind you, you're going to be missing out on the damage if you don't start the fight. But I think that is where the trade-off is. Granted, the buff is decent, but it's not great. Hence why, if they allow you to execute the step beforehand, I feel that that's not optimal, for one. And two, I don't think it should be allowed. But at the same time, I can see both sides of the coin. Some people may want that, where you start off with the dancer doing the specific dance, and once they have that dance fully done, they cast it, everyone gets a buff, and they start the fight. And, you kind of do your basic rotation until you can get your fans up and everything like that. When they talked about getting rid of the way Bard is with the crits, I found that to be interesting, because that wasn't always going to, you can make a crit build and that helps. You can get the materia and be perfectly fine, in most cases at least. But the fact that, a lot of the jobs that were very heavy RNG based were reworked and changed to not really be as RNG heavy, they certainly made a RNG job out of Dancer. Even though it's 50%. To me, that's fantastic. Because that means 50% chance. That's a 50-50. It's either it's going to do it or it's not going to do it. And it's a lot better than a 35% chance at something. Or, for the crits. It's not... The RNG is, though it is still present, it is decent. It's okay. I would just put it that way. It's okay. Like I said, I'm still very excited. I'm going to be a ranged physical main anyways, because I'm going to be playing Bard all the way through, and then bring up most likely Dancer. I'll bring up Machinist afterwards, of course. I want to get Dancer up because Dancer is starts off at 60. Once I get the ranged physicals up to snuff and everything of that nature, and I get comfortable, I'll start reaching to be Gunbreaker as a secondary. And then a third is going to be a White Mage. To be honest, like out of the healers, I will most likely be playing White Mage. On that regard, and I'll go into that later on. But for the range physical, the way I want to end it is go off in the comments. Go into the comments. Be respectful of each other, of course. But I want you guys to talk about it. Now, especially if you're massive Final Fantasy XIV people, and you saw all these changes, you saw all these videos. I want a conversation to start. I want a conversation that is constructive. Something that will get multiple sides. And I want it to be focused, at least in this video, on range physical. How do you feel about the Bard changes? How do you feel about the Machinist changes? How do you feel about Dancer overall? In general, I just want to be able to have that conversation with you guys about the changes, the additions, and as well, if you're not pleased, say if you are a ranged physical main, but you're not pleased with any of the ranged physical changes, tell me why. Tell me what you would be changing to, and kind of focusing on later. But, with that being said, if you like the video, that's fantastic. I do hope you do hit that subscribe button and bell icon, to get notified when I do upload. I'll be doing a regular bit of uploading throughout the week. I will be streaming on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So on Monday, naturally I'm off, so that will be around noon. I will be streaming around noon, tomorrow even. But tomorrow I'll be streaming from noon to about 3. And then I may even I got a new face cam, so I may install the face cam and we can all have that as well. And then after that, of course, Wednesdays and Fridays are going to be a little bit different, mostly just because I know I work on those days. So I'll be doing that focus, but definitely hit a follow on my Twitch as well, and you'll always be, and if you turn on notifications, it'll notify you when I upload. Just know that on Mondays it's going to be noon, at least for now it's going to be noon since the way my work schedule is working currently. So noon there. Wednesdays and Fridays I'm going to try and hit early, probably around 10 or 11. They're going to be a little bit shorter, most likely. So they're probably going to be like 2 hours instead of 3, an hour and a half to 2 hours, which is unfortunate. But hopefully things change soon. And with that, I definitely appreciate it. If you guys did enjoy the video, a like would be appreciated also with that subscribe. And like I said, have the peaceful conversation down in the comments. Make sure you understand that people have their right to their own opinion, and have a right to feel the way they feel about the job changes, whether they like it or not. I just want to hear from you. If you don't like it, what are you going to be more or less changing to? What made you want to change over, and what changes don't you like about the specific job you were interested in? But if you do like the changes, tell me what you like. Tell me, which job you're going to be most likely going through in ShadowBringers and how you're going to approach it. So with that, I definitely appreciate it. I'll see you guys all on the next one.